All right, folks, what is up? I am here with Miss Sara Elise, transformational evolutionary astrologer and spiritual life coach. And I've got to say, this is like one of my most anticipated discussions of the year. So I'm so excited to have you back again, Sarah. Yay! I've had several people reaching out to you. They're like, when is the episode coming out? When is it coming out? I'm like,
Oh
it's
my
coming
goodness.
soon.
I'll try to live up to the expectation.
You know, that's the best part of having you is like, you don't have to do anything. You just have to show up and share. That's it. That's why, you're awesome. So, kind of just a fun place that I wanted to start was just kind of wrapping up 2021, which I feel like is kind of difficult because it's been such a huge year. And in many ways, I think it was more difficult than 2021, or 2020, I should say. But I just kind of wanted to
Mhm.
like maybe tap into your feelings about 2021 and just kind of lay some groundwork, before we dive into talking about 2022.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a perfect place to start because 2021 was an entirely new reality. I don't think most people recognize or realize what we actually did in 2021, but we lifted out of the earth and into the air. So there was a fundamental elemental shift in consciousness, and it's impacting everything and everyone. And so, because we actually have no ground to stand on, we are in complete chaos. There's so much change and upheaval. There's so much insanity, and it's okay. Like like literally, we're in a cycle of change and adjustment because we are redefining where our entire society is. Like, there's no going back to the way things were before. That's it.
Yeah.
2020 was the end of a 200-year cycle. We're not going back. We have to go ahead. We have to go forward. And so there's this collective zeitgeist, this passion, this spirit, this soul, this force that we're all going to take the reins together and make this happen. And so we're learning how to get along in the sandbox right now. This is like a big theme of 2021. And it's going to continue. It's not over. We have to figure out how to get along in the sandbox. But I think 2021, there was a lot of mudslinging, it's a lot of anger, and there was a lot of like lots of fiery indignance and fighting. Right? Everybody had an opinion.
Yeah, very
Everybody
divisive.
was mad. Yeah, very divisive. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
the division in 2021, the camps. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. You're wrong, I'm right. Like it was continuous, a continuous shouting match, right, from different camps of opinions. And the thing is, like, opinions based on what? Right? Like, the entire world is on upheaval, and no one really knows. Like, we're trying to figure it out as we go. And what's really come by the end of 2021, what we've all figured out is there's only one place really, quote unquote, to go, and that's to the data. And we have to share it openly and be really honest about it, because there's really no one's opinion really matters. Actually, it is irrelevant what you personally feel. And this has been reflected in the nodal shift, in the nodal axis, right? We had a south node in Sagittarius and a north node in Gemini. And the reality is, like, that when you get down to it, the only thing that's going to help save our like help us figure it out is shutting up and listening to each other, first of all, being open-minded, and like really looking at the facts. And that means with an unbiased eye. And that means all the facts, not just some of them curated carefully in order to, perpetuate a message. So it's been incredibly complicated, right? Incredibly complicated, because you've been having this division and this kind of this fight. And I suppose, the way that it's been really showing itself, like in our community and kind of this new age spiritual community, has been like the vaccine issue,
Oh
right?
gosh.
And I don't want to make this
No.
podcast about vaccines, because I'm staying out of the fight, because I have no interest in actually having that argument. I am not interested. I'm only looking at the archetypes and I'm looking at what's kind of, what's kind of behind the polarization, and all I can see is that the disease is righteousness, and the remedy is listening. Okay, the disease is righteousness, the remedy is facts,
Well, and
and
this is the thing that like
those two places we need to be. Hmm?
this is the thing that popped up, for me anyway, in 2020. I mean, first of all, I should back up. What you said about us really shifting into this new time. I mean, it's so fascinating because last year when we talked for the like 2021 forecast, and I had gone into the records for my end of the take, the records had said like 2020 was the shakeup and 2021 was the beginning. And it's really cool because the December reading that I channeled through, like that was the very last line, like this is the beginning. But this whole shakeup of everything that has been happening, and this, I don't know, I think it's what has come forward in regards to like these two different sides, and like you're talking about this divisiveness. It's, for me, it like really started with the masks, back in 2020 when I realized there was this huge like push and pull. It was like I was finding myself in this like arrogant indignance about people who weren't wearing masks, and just thinking like, oh my gosh, like who raised them, and then of course I caught myself and it was like, wait a minute, the truth is this is kind of how we're raised. This is how we're conditioned. This is what we're taught. This is what we've been taught our entire life, Democrat, Republican, black, white, right, wrong. You know what I mean? When nothing really exists in those extremes, except for maybe momentarily. But when we actually have the discussion, when we actually listen to each other, like you're talking about, it's all about the gray area, that middle space, And I think that part of the reason that 2021 has been so difficult is because it's been that like ripping open of both ends of both of those extremities, and people are just so emotional because they don't know where to hang out. People that they love, people that they respect have different viewpoints, and they don't know how to freaking handle it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
people have straight up like walked away from lifelong relationships over this stuff instead of being like, I call it the middle space, because when I saw this in myself with the masks, there was a really beautiful thing that was happening at the time that really helped me to see. It's like, I can feel this way and you can feel this way, but there's space for both of those things. We can meet in the middle. If you feel one way, that's all right, because like you're saying, just briefly, like even with, I mean, subjects like vaccines, like it's just been one after the other. And the truth is, when I listen to a lot of, those arguments, the grounded ones, I'm like, I get it. If I was forced to do something, I wouldn't be about it either. And then I hear my friends who are parents talking about their own side, like, well, my kids are in danger. Like the truth is like we're all human, and we have missed out on that humanity this year. I think because it has been this lift off, like you're saying, from ground to air. And what happens when you're dangling in the air? You're freaking out, right? It's like, where's the ground beneath
Exactly.
me?
The structure fell down in 2020, so the rules fell apart, right? And we're in an undefined space where we don't know what to hold on to. We really don't have a structure. We don't have a form. We're creating a new form right now for the collective. So all of 2021, Saturn was in Aquarius, and it was squaring Uranus and Taurus. So there's this, that's the division that we've been feeling. Uranus in Taurus, square Saturn in Aquarius. There have been two already direct hits, I believe. I wrote them all down.
This year in
I think
2021,
I think
right?
we had February 18th, it squared at 7 degrees. June 15th, it squared at 13 degrees. And on December 24th, we'll have the third and final square of 2021 between Uranus and Taurus at 11 degrees. So you're sorry, between Uranus and Taurus and Saturn in Aquarius. So what this archetypally kind of stands for is that we had Saturn conjunct Pluto conjunct Jupiter in Capricorn in 2020, right? And it was destroying old form, like so taking down the old guard, or like you so beautifully said, Republic and Democrat. What are these rules that we have led ourselves by? What are these partisanships, or what are these bureaucracies, or what are these expectations, these defaults that we were all running by? And we all have default because of our conditioning into the society we're born, into the families we're born, even into our biology, right? All of that conditioning wanted to fall away, or at least come to a complete standstill in 2020, so that we just stopped running on default and started to kind of wake up inside this dream / nightmare. For most of it, it feels like a nightmare. And for some of us, it feels like a dream. And it just depends on where you're at with your perception of it. But we were shaken, and so that we could wake up. And then in 2021, there's this awareness that we have to recreate the social fabric because the game has changed. So Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn is the social structure. It's the rules by which we govern our society, our community, and ourselves. It is our own boundary. Saturn, I call it the Earth ship. The planet Saturn represents what you are responsible for in your human reality on planet Earth, so that you can land, so that you can have a stable life. If you don't do your Saturn well, you're out of luck. Your life is not stable at all. You're gonna be messed up, I guarantee. It causes you a lot of struggle. You have to get Saturn, right? You have to have a strong sense of discipline and self-mastery. So Saturn is how we discipline and structure our reality. 10th house, social reality. It impacts all of us. We're all part of it. And Saturn in Aquarius is this, we're in this bridge period between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. And this is literally 2021 was the start, like the new beginning of moving into a completely different age, a completely different way of being inside our own reality, our own personal, and also collectively. So Saturn in Aquarius through all of 2021 has been trying to figure out what the rules are for the collective Aquarius, trying to figure out, how do we keep everyone safe? How do we combine forces? What do we make everybody do so that everybody is okay? And remember, like, Aquarius is a collective archetype. So it thinks about the whole first. It thinks about the group. It actually orients itself toward an understanding that we're all one and we're all in this together. It's extraordinary when you think about that. But we've also had lots of examples of totalitarianism and of groupthink gone wrong. Like, Aquarius is not perfect.
Yeah, it's the shadow of
There is shadow.
Aquarius we've seen a lot of this year for sure.
Well, we are going to. I think that what the square to Uranus and Taurus is helping us with is it's helping us not go too far down the garden path of totalitarianism, because Uranus is actually the ruler of Aquarius. Interestingly enough, the two rulers of Aquarius, Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius from the 10th house, and Uranus is the ruler of the Aquarius in the 11th house. And both of them are actually considered ruling Aquarius, and they are squaring each other. So the revolutionary ruler of Aquarius is squaring the paternal structured ruler of Aquarius, so that we can find a way to come together and create a society that works for everyone, not just one way, okay? Because the Saturnian Aquarian wants to be like Mao, and look, China is amazing, and they are an incredibly advanced civilization, and they have done unbelievable things since the Cultural Revolution. And
all capital letters
too, right? Like, there's something to be said for social cohesion, government control. They're geniuses, and there's a lot of personal rights that are kind of like swept under the bus, and a lot of damage that's done on a personal level, because if you get tiny people sticking out of the collective and fighting, you don't have room for rebellion in a system like that, right? You don't have room for dissent or for anyone having a difference of opinion. So Uranus is that revolutionary part of Aquarius that says, no, let's move forward. We have to break the system. We can't just follow the rules. We have to evolve ahead. We have to grow higher. We have to grow better. We have to do things smarter. And so the Uranus in Taurus has been bringing in like a feeling of, wait a second, my human rights matter, my security, my personal security, Taurus, my personal values matter. And the square to Saturn in Aquarius is saying, let's look at the gray zone, just like you said, Anna, because a square is a catalyzing aspect. It inspires evolution. It does not say this one's better than this one. It says we need to find a place for both of them. Yeah. That's why it catalyzes growth. It's a catalytic, aspect that makes us change. So because of the friction and that it causes. So here's the thing, let's just piece it out by an example. So I have a lot of friends that felt exactly the opposite to you, okay? Who felt, look at those sheeple wearing their masks when the data says it means nothing and does nothing, okay? And then the other side is like, look at those irresponsible, ignorant fools not wearing their masks when the data says this and this and that. And so, okay. What do you do? Neither, is either one of them right? So there has to be this place of compromise. There has to be this place of kind of an illuminated, lifting above the conflict and seeing it from a different level. Do you know what I mean? That's
exactly, yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I had to go through.
Yes, exactly.
And it was like, wait a minute, I have to pull myself out of this. So I ended up posting, I shared a post on Facebook that said, I wear my mask for me. And I shared this, viewpoint. It was I was very much because in my mind, it was this is what I should do for others. Do I know that the science is perfect? No. Do I know whatever? But if all I have to do is wear a mask, even though I get claustrophobic and I can't anxious and all of that, okay, I can do that, and so I was very upset about this, but it was just wait a minute, I need to rise above that and make a decision for me and what is right for me. And that is the only thing that I can actually judge, right? I can't be in control of one or the other. Nobody has that information. And that's what we forget.
They all believe they have the information, and that's great. And another thing to keep in mind is evolution is always going to be filled with many characters. For sure. Every one of them is important, right? The revolutionary is just as important as the dictator. Okay, we're all playing our role here, and there is no right or wrong. Your perspective and my perspective are very similar, which is probably why we resonate with each other, because that's tribal consciousness. And that's also part of the age of Aquarius, by the way, is finding the vibrational field, finding the quote unquote group Aquarius that you resonate with, so that you can join it and amplify its field, right? And no one's frequency is wrong. I don't believe that at all. And in fact, I came to a very similar decision as you, because I knew that I have to live inside this society, and this really matters to other people, and it makes them feel safe when I wear my mask, and so I will wear it, and I will happily wear it. And it's also the law where I live. It's actually the law. You must wear your mask when you go inside. It's legally, and I will follow the law, and I will respect the legal expectations. And quite frankly, I don't mind wearing my mask, especially, with this new, very virulent and contagious Omicron, whatever it must be. And I know everyone's, there's so many different yelling voices on both sides of that as well, but I'm just going to do what's right for me. I'm not going to judge anyone else, as long as I take care of my own needs and be responsible for myself. That's all that matters. It really is a personal decision.
And that's lifting up.
That is lifting up, right?
That is lifting up. in your
not
own personal way.
engaging in either one of these perspectives, but every time one of the perspectives comes my way, I graciously receive it in a non-judgmental and loving manner. If I have something to contribute, I do. If I don't, I don't. And quite frankly, I like to stay out of it. But I'm very interested in learning about how people feel. Like I've opened my mind to be
I think
able
it's
to
important. I think
connect.
it's important to have those conversations. Absolutely. And it's important to be curious about how someone else is feeling. I think that and but being able to have those conversations, I think it must originate in curiosity in order for it to truly get anywhere. You know what I
That's the
mean?
Gemini. That's the North Node in
Yeah.
Gemini. Is we've been giving ourselves permission to get off the high horse of Sagittarius and come down to the same level as each other, and then engage in sharing information and from a place of open-mindedness and curiosity
Yeah.
and equality as well. Like if we
Yeah.
see each other as us and them or othering, if we're othering each other, we know we're not in Gemini, because Gemini does not ever other anybody. It is light, and it is loving. It's like it's the true relationship archetype. Like it is able to go lightly and connect with anybody, because it
Yeah.
is really available to lovingly witness another in a way that doesn't judge it. There's no
Yeah.
judgment in Gemini. It's a non-judgmental archetype, actually.
Well, it's a very, I think it's just a very respectful way of navigating through these times. And it's something I talk about on the podcast a lot, especially the past several months. It's just something I've really been advising, not only because I see it's like the best way to handle these times is to lead with curiosity, always, like just lead with curiosity. Um, Another great example, one of my very best friends, when Biden was sworn into office, he was a very staunch Trump supporter, and thankfully he's someone in my life that we could have open and honest conversations, and we were also very cautious and respectful of one another. But when that happened, I remember talking to him that day, and we were sharing voice notes back and forth, and just the way that he sounded, and it was like the fear that I could hear behind him and what he was feeling. It was like it took me right back to 2016, when Trump won. And it was again that one more example of the fact that my reality is mine, my feelings are mine. How could I discount this beautiful human who I love so much? I felt bad for him because I knew exactly what it felt like to be in those shoes. Even though, like, I didn't vote for Trump again. That wasn't my decision. But like, there was this part of me that wanted to like take care of him in that moment. It's like, I think if we're able to step back, like you're saying, we're going to understand, we're going to connect into the humanity versus the need to be right and wrong. So
So I
you
love
really,
that you kind of brought that up, because that's actually the next theme that we're heading into. This and that theme is what lies beneath the opinion, what lies beneath the conversation, what lies beneath the air, and what is in the deep water. Like what is the humanity beneath this conversation that we've been continuously having?
is this
Because
Taurus Scorpio?
this is the new shift that's about to come, and it started already on November the 19th. Okay, so there was on November the 19th, there was an eclipse at 27 degrees of Taurus, and it was the first eclipse on the Taurus Scorpio line, with South Node in Scorpio, North Node in Taurus. And so our zeitgeist is about to shift, and what's coming next isn't going to feel very good. I really believe that we're about to be put into the underworld, not because we want to be, because we need to be punished or something, or there's something wrong with us, but because it's time for us to get really in touch with what is underneath the surface of our thoughts what is underneath the surface of our opinions and our attitudes and the conversations that we're having. Why are we so indignant? Why are we wanting to share these opinions? Why does our voice get inflamed in certain ways when we start to defend certain thinking or certain attitudes? Like what is the motivation? Like what is underneath? And like Scorpio is that archetype of the underlying motivations and the ways that we have it's kind of a complex archetype.
Scorpio is so complex.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about it, and there's many different levels you can go to with Scorpio, but I think essentially what Scorpio is about water. It's about deep, deep, deep emotion, and it's about the places inside of us that we are afraid to go because they hurt too much. And those places are generally the things that we kind of shove under the rug or put away in the basement and like refuse to acknowledge and pretend they don't exist. Okay. And so that we build up our ego on top of pain or on top of trauma or on top of fear or on top of rejection or on top of shame or on top of jealousy or on top of violence or evil. Even like there's a lot of stuff in the emotional body that we may not like, that is very taboo, so that we're not comfortable going into those feelings, right? We spend a lot of time avoiding them. Most of the time we just pretend they're not there, and when they do come up, we're very few of us equipped to understand how to deal with the shadow. So sometimes when emotions come up that are really challenging, we feel like we can't handle it, or we can't and so we want to escape. We escape through drugs, or we escape through alcohol. Sometimes we escape through suicide, right? There are all sorts of ways that we try to escape pain and try to create a relationship that doesn't involve it. But it's really, really imperative that we do know that the next year and a half is going to be, the invitation is going to be into the pain body, not because there's something wrong with us, okay? Not because we are being punished, but because it's time for us to look the beast in the face and to really heal ourselves and to come into ourselves in a more gentle way so that we can feel safe here on this planet with each other, right? Like there's like a security or a stability that we need to find. And the only way you can come into your body, Anna, is by going through the emotions that are inside of it, because emotions are just trapped energy. And generally they're trapped energy that comes from conditioning or events, trauma events, things we've seen. And from an esoteric perspective, I know that we have much in our emotional body that we carry through from other lifetimes as well. And, when I started having past life memories in my 30s, I became very, very consciously aware that I was carrying things in my astral field or in my energy body that were emotional structures that were not rooted in this lifetime. There was no trauma for me in my childhood that would be kind of composite to the feelings or the patterns that I was carrying in my psyche. And so the only way that I could understand them or reckon them was to start understanding and reckoning with the fact that our soul is on an evolving path, and that I have access either I don't know how time works because we experience it in a linear fashion on this planet, but obviously these are frequencies that I tune into either simultaneous lifetimes or past lifetimes. I don't know, but they're part of me, and I have to take responsibility for them. Like I'm the only one who can come into this body. So if we want to come into ourselves and into the seat of our soul and into our body and onto the planet, and it's really important that we do that as we move through into this next stage of evolution, because technology is going to become more and more and more and more paramount to how we survive on the planet. We are all going into this kind of metaverse of electrical gadgets and electricity and information and higher frequency of mind. If we're not in our body, we're just gonna like we're just going to kind of burn out. Do you know what I mean? Like it's going to take a
Yeah.
hit to our physical form. So this next year and a half is about doing that deeper work and saying, how can I come and take care of this form that I have? How can I find a way to be inside this being that I am and love myself? Because we don't have any way to survive here on this planet anymore. We've had it all taken away. Like our economy is going to change. The way we make money is going to change. Everything is going to change in the
Let me
next.
ask you a question, because it's so. First of all, you're kind of talking about the Scorpio, right? Which is the south node, which is for folks who aren't familiar with like north node, south node kind of axis. So I just want to kind of clarify that for folks who are listening. So what we were coming out of, we were on the Gemini north node, Sagittarius south node, correct?
Can I explain it quick?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
so we evolve in cyclical patterns. Okay, so we are constantly evolving, and the way that we, if on this planet we are all living the dream of planet Earth and humanity, and this at this current point in time, the parameters of our evolutionary dream at whatever period of time you're looking at can be defined by the nodal axis of the moon at the most conscious level of that dream. Okay, so the moon is how we literally personally experience reality. It is a subjective experience of reality. So we all feel our moon and we act it out as a character in this grand game of human species now. Okay, and the moon's nodes dictate the parameters within which we are evolving our character and our collective at any one time on our evolutionary path. And so you can go back in history and the moon's nodes just keep turning, right? They keep turning on like these 30-year cycles or whatever it is. I think it's about 30 years or 28 years. I think it's 28 years. It goes around every 28 years. They rotate. You have nodes of the moon in your birth chart that dictate the parameters of your own personal hero's journey, okay? Your own personal storyline. But as at a collective level, like the nodes are always shifting every 18 months. So they also dictate the sort of the collective journey, the collective storyline that we're all playing out, the lessons that we are as a collective learning at this point in history on an emotional level, okay? So it's very, very personal. Like if you can remember this past year, South Node of Sag, so the South Node is kind of the illness and the North Node is the remedy. So the South Node is what's the friction, what's the challenge, where the shadow lies. And the North Node is the evolutionary intention for the cycle. So last year, if you remember going online, and this started in 2020 actually, because the nodes shifted in I think May of 2020 or something. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact month. I believe it was around the spring of 2020. And what I noticed, I'm sure you noticed the same thing, was on Facebook, for instance, there became like this unbelievable level of violence in people's tonality, in the way people were talking to each other. I link into a couple of community Facebook pages because I'm interested in my community. And for months, I mean, it was just like people were just getting attacked. Like attack. And then gradually, as the nodes kind of continued and we continued to grow through this evolutionary impulse to shame, blame, and reduce everybody and call them stupid and yell at them, gradually I started watching on these Facebook pages how the moderators would step in and say, listen, guys, there'll be none of that behavior here. We need to listen to each other with kindness. So after the summer of 2021, there was a discernible difference in the tone that people were taking, in the amount of patience that we had with each other's ideas. Like it's like the entire zeitgeist has shifted in 18 months from inflamed self-righteousness to moderative conversations, right? And so that's been the pattern of growth based on the nodal axis, based on the dream that we're dreaming. That's the lesson that we've been learning. So now we're starting a new dream. It's a new cycle. The sickness is Scorpio, the remedy is Taurus. Okay, the sickness is the fact that we've got a lot of pain and we've got a lot of darkness. And when we act from that pain and darkness, or when that pain and darkness is being, is under the surface, there's a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of, like, Scorpio can be very, very painful when it acts from those places unconsciously. It can really hurt
Yeah.
others. It can be very violent. The scorpion sting, right? It's extremely sensitive. There's like the shadow of Scorpio has to do with like an acute level of defensiveness based on fear that you're
Yeah.
going to be killed. Okay, it's like, it's so primal. Like Scorpio is this archetype at its worst, that feels always on edge, as always there's a threat. There's something wrong, there's something that's going to get me. And so I have to protect myself first. So that's one shadow of Scorpio. Okay. Another shadow of Scorpio would be, like I was saying earlier, trying to escape the pain through indulgence or drugs or other kind of addictions, like denying that the pain exists and trying to escape it, and like indulging in behaviors that are really, really dark. And some of the other shadows, I think, are just basically the blonde Scorpio who just refuses to acknowledge what's under the surface and refuses to feel anything, and then just projects those feelings out on others. And like those are all some sort of qualities that might be coming up. Like for me, like what happened at that eclipse is the morning of that first eclipse, I had this dream that brought up my karma from my feminine line, and I got to see in my dream how it has been playing out in my life. It has been underlying the decisions I've made unconsciously. I got to take responsibility for it. I went into basically a hell state for 2 weeks because I was so ashamed of myself. And it brought me into the deepest pain that I've ever felt. Like truly, like I got to go to the bottom of my basement and say, oh my God, this is what I've been doing. This is how I've been acting. This is why. And it was like, I felt like I was being given a gift of being able to see my shadow so clearly. And then what do I do with that shadow? Well, what does Taurus want us to do? Taurus wants us, as a remedy to that dark place that may come up in the next 18 months, Taurus is asking us to calm down, go slow, reevaluate what matters to us, take care of ourselves, not let the pain kill us, because it won't. Like we can work with it if we come into our body, and if we like work on kind of taking care, right? And really kind of grounding our energy and going beneath the pain, finding a stability beneath the pain. What is underneath it? Like, have you always been that messed up? No, there's
Well, and
something.
sorry, I was just, I mean, I think that it's fascinating what you're saying, because so much of what the Akashic Records channeled through as well in regards to this year and the big themes of this year, the overarching theme, according to the records, was relationship. And it all starts at home. It all starts like what you're talking about, with the going deep, with the dealing within ourselves, with the being honest, but then really learning how to take care of ourselves. It's like it goes back to uh, the quote for this podcast, which was just given to me as a download in 2016: when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. And in the midst of this like beginning, we're being, I think, and yeah, it's not going to be easy, but we're being given the gift of being required to go back inside, required to kind of go back down to foundation, to ground zero and rebuild,
Yeah,
and in the midst of that rebuilding, it's not going to be attractive. I've already started getting hints of my own Scorpio shadow coming through, and it's like, oh, okay. But when we can get through that, and when we can rise to that, what you're talking about, the Taurus, learning how to take care of ourselves in the midst of that, holy shit, how powerful will we be for our community? Will we be for those around us? Because being who we are, and we won't even necessarily need to try to affect those around us simply by becoming a more whole version, more embodied version that's going to naturally, you know what I mean, like radiate out to everyone that we come into contact with. Um, so I love what you're sharing because I think that this is just, I mean, especially in regards to what the records were really showing me, it just aligns so beautifully with what the major theme of this year is. I want to be sensitive to time because I know you don't have as much, and we've got a couple of other
We
things
have
to like touch on.
Yeah, for sure. So this, I mean, like just so for Taurus, the Scorpio Taurus axis, the eclipses are happening in April, on April 30th and May 16th, October 25th, and November 8th. And so there are 4 eclipses this year, which will be really defining and which will kind of be game changers for us collectively. I think the best thing to do if the mud starts getting slung around and if things start getting scary is just to come back into your central neutral ground, right? Like to come back into your body and just remember that safety comes from within, that you can feel secure inside yourself if you anchor into your value system, what matters to you, and go into something real and tangible, right? Like just take care of yourself in a very real, tangible way, go slow, take it easy, and try and stay out of the insanity. It's try and stay out of like too much of other people's trauma, right? Like just
We've been talking about
take
that so
care
much on this
of
podcast for the
yourself.
last couple of months.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
this is how you're going to survive. Is exactly what you're saying when
totally.
things get tough.
And it's
Um,
like it's really, really healthy for the shadow to come up. Like if we don't see it, we can't be beyond it. So, and the shadow is often just places where our natural power has been subjugated or traumatized. So
yeah.
it's like we need to release the energy in order to like become more powerful, authentically powerful, in order for our soul to come in and really be here. Because Scorpio at its esoteric essence is the battle between the personality and the soul. That's where Scorpio lives. It lives in the intersection point between that higher self and that lower self.
Yeah.
And where that intersection point is where there is a lot of pain, because the lower self doesn't want to let go to the higher self. It wants to hold on. And so there's like a friction that's created. There's a conflict always in Scorpio around going deeper, going deeper, going deeper, going deeper, going deeper into more and more and more authenticity. So just remember to ride your authenticity instead of riding the trauma. That might be helpful. And some of the other things that are happening that will help. Jupiter, at least at the beginning of the year, there's an interesting invitation. Jupiter is entering Pisces. Okay, so this is a really defining transit this year. It's not going to be the whole year. Jupiter enters Pisces on December 30th, and it's going to be there until about May the 12th. And then it goes into Aries, and it will be in Aries all the way till the end of October. Then it kind of creeps back into Pisces for like literally just 2 months, and then it's gone into Aries. So we get about 6 months of Jupiter in Pisces, okay, until around the middle of May or the early May. So it's 5 months. We get 5 months of Jupiter in Pisces. And what that means, wherever Jupiter sits in the sky, it amplifies the archetype. So Jupiter in the sign of Pisces is going to amplify Piscean complex. And, you know, Pisces, we're coming out of the era of Pisces, which is all around higher, the hierarchy of consciousness. It's all about God, thou Father who art in heaven, right? It's all about that looking up and looking out to the greater expanse of the unified field of love and light and forgiveness and higher self and God, and all of this stuff is very Piscean. It's very like up and out energy. It's also about forgiveness, right? We think about the Christ and the Christ consciousness as being very Piscean. It's about unconditional love for all. It's about spiritual unity. It's about beauty and like a feeling of complete compassionate forgiveness and love for everyone. So there are some really lovely parts of Pisces that will be amplified by Jupiter for the first 5 months of the year. So if we can tune into that energy at a higher level, it should be really lovely, especially when Jupiter joins Neptune, which has been in Pisces for a few years, I think since 2008. Don't quote me, please. Sorry, I don't know the exact year that Neptune went into Pisces. It might have been 2010, but I can't remember. Anyway, on April the 19th through the 12th, there will be a conjunction between the two at 23 degrees of Pisces. And so probably through the whole month of April into early May, there's going to be this kind of frequency affiliation between the two. So there will be an extra amplification of the Piscean field available on the planet. And at a lower level, if you're operating within a lower operating system, that can lead to a lot of delusion and illusion. It could lead to like sort of like the energy of the Crusades, right? Like that sort of zealotry, like this is the way and this is the one, and we have to all, you know, very religious, very kind of archetypally polarized spirituality that seems a little delusional, if that makes sense to you, right? Like sort of the prophet, Lord, he's the only one. Like there's some sort of murky stuff, like our personalities like to get a hold of things and then they like to make big deals out of them. But at a higher level, Pisces is literally about connecting to God. So for those of us who want to do our spiritual work at that time, there's a gate that's available in April, a spiritual gate. It's a really beautiful time for contemplation and connection to your own source and meditation. Just make sure you're not making it personal. Just don't fall into your navel, into your belly button, into your lower chakras and make it all about you. Don't like rise up and say you're the next second coming of Christ, right? Like there's just like, keep it real, keep it clean, keep it pure, like amplify your own energy field by tuning up and tuning into the light. That don't give it a personality and make it all about yourself, right? Like that's the danger during that time. Does that make sense to you?
For sure.
That's sort of a
Yeah.
danger, because Pisces can be like really delusional sometimes.
Well,
Right?
I think too, like mixed with Neptune, it can like, whew, man, murky waters, you know, like I
Exactly.
always get like
Yeah, totally.
really spacey when Neptune's really, you know, my Neptune's in Sag, so yeah.
Clean the water, clean the water. April is a time for spiritual work. Okay. April is a time for spiritual work. It's a time to clean the water. It's going to be a really, really, really beautiful time. But
And I
remember,
think
April 30th is the first partial solar eclipse in Taurus. So, you
I
know,
feel like too, and I'd love to kind of get your take on this, but I feel like this could really, I mean, like the Jupiter and Pisces, and I mean, you know, kind of this theme, especially starting off our year, it feels like I don't know, it's like it feels like a very, like a moment for art to come back.
oh,
For, you know what I mean? It's like I've been seeing like more and more poetry, like people sharing poetry over the last like 2 months. I should maybe a bit longer, but it's just like it's like this like reawakening of like not the Renaissance era type thing, but like you know, it's like the arts are kind of like I feel like there's a space for creativity that we haven't had in a while that's going to be coming back very strongly. And like I said, it within the poetry, within art, you know, however it is, people want to really dive into their artistic selves. But I feel that, yeah, there's a lot of energy coming in for that to be given more attention where we haven't done that in a while. You know, it's like, do you see
totally. Yes, that's
that?
wonderful. And then Saturn moves into Pisces in 2023. So beautiful. And in April, May, and June of 2021, Jupiter did cross into Pisces. So this
Yes.
summer was a bit of a precursor to the energy.
Yeah.
And it was a lovely summer. Like there was just
Yeah.
such an elevated state. I did so much meditation this summer. Like it was insane. Like, oh my God, like I can't believe like the energy that was coming in. It was just so beautiful. And I felt so peaceful and so good with Jupiter and Pisces. It's going to be lovely if you can ride it. And absolutely, Pisces is artistic. It's creative. It's expressive, right? It flows. It
Yeah.
allows, it's sweetness, it's kindness, it's beauty, it's Love. It's
Here,
love, really.
here in the US, it was like literally when Jupiter moved into Pisces. I think it was like the first day was when they lifted the mask mandate
Oh,
here in the
see? Yes,
US. It was
right? There's like
like,
a little freedom there for a minute.
whoa!
Exactly, exactly. So let's look forward to that because that's going to be a really
Yes.
beautiful thing. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about, I mean, is the Mars entering Gemini. And this one's really interesting because Mars is entering Gemini and it's staying there for 7 months because it goes retrograde. It doesn't go retrograde very often. And it's
How
staying in
often does
Gemini.
it go retrograde?
Oh gosh, how often does Mars go retrograde? I don't know, like every couple of years? I'm not
I know
exactly sure.
Pisces is like, or not Pisces, Venus is like every year and a half, but I haven't, Mars is,
I have it written down somewhere.
that's a long time to be in Gemini.
It is going to be a long time for it to be in Gemini, particularly because it's going to be out of bounds for a huge amount of it. So it's going to be kind of like Mars on steroids. Like it goes out of bounds um, a lot, basically. I wrote down when it's, oh shit, I don't know. My notes got a little wonky. So let me go into my ephemeris and just see when Mars is out of bounds. It goes into, Mars goes into Gemini kind of in August. Okay, so on August 21st. And it will be out of bounds in from about from kind of about the last week, about the 23rd of October, all the way through November, all the way through December, all the way through January, all the way through February, all the way through March, and all the way through April. Okay, so let me just explain what out of bounds means, because that's a lot of out of bounds. Like it's out of bounds the entire time. Out of bounds planets in the chart don't follow the rules of the normal zeitgeist. They don't follow the same pattern. They go outside of the pattern. So they're great times of evolutionary opportunity because new things are coming in, right? We already have new things coming in right now with the Uranus and Taurus squaring Saturn in Aquarius, because we're really redefining our value system and we're bringing in new archetypes onto the planet that have to do with how we're going to create social order and society into the future. So the Mars in Gemini is going to bring in a whole new way of kind of doing and willing ourselves into the world. Mars is a sword. Mars energy is how you cut through the reality. So it's how we extend ourselves. It's our will force. And like willing, what we do, it's also the god of war.
Is
So
it happy with Gemini?
uh is Mars happy with Gemini? What an interesting question. It's not very happy in Cancer. It's not
Right.
very happy in Libra. In Gemini, yeah, I would say it's not unhappy. It's not unhappy in Gemini. It's more like in Gemini, it wants to like do a lot of different
Yeah.
things. It wants to learn a lot of different things, and it wants to have like many, many, many different conversations. It
Well, I
wants to
feel like Mars is like the doing, and then Gemini is like the thinking.
yeah,
So that's like super active time.
yeah, super active thinking, super active relationships, super active conversations, information, learning, like talk about information technologies,
Wow. I was
right?
just
Like
thinking
so
like technology is going to blow the up.
it might. I don't know. I'm really interested to watch what it does and what
Wow.
it means and what it feels like to have Mars and Gemini out of bounds. But I can imagine that we are all going to want to be engaging in a lot of conversations about many, many different things. Talk about the Renaissance, like this feeling you have about the Renaissance, like a reclamation of that energy, because the Renaissance was all about excitement and new ideas. That's what the Renaissance was about. There was science, there was art, there was Hermeticism came back during the Renaissance. There was astrology came back during the Renaissance. It was just this time of enlightenment. So maybe that is going to be what this feels like, right?
Hmm. And this starts in August.
Um, yeah. So the Mars goes into Gemini a little bit earlier than August. It goes into Gemini in August, sorry, in August. In August, it goes into Gemini on August 21st. It goes out of bounds on the 23rd of October, though.
Okay.
So it will be in Gemini for August and September and 3/4 of October before it goes out of bounds. And then around the 23rd, 24th, 25th, somewhere in there, like somewhere around Halloween. Let's just remember Halloween. Halloween, Mars goes out of bounds in Gemini. It's going to be so much fun. I am really excited about that. You know, I like slightly concerned, like the Martian quality of like Mars can be a little pushy, right? Like it can be a little violent sometimes and a little aggressive. However, what's fascinating about it is the out of bounds part, because I know how out of bounds planets play in my chart, because I have out of bounds planets in my chart, and they're real mavericks. Like there is no rule that governs them. You don't even recognize, like they don't act at all the same, right? The planets I have that are out of bounds, they're totally different.
It's just so fascinating to think about, even just Mars and Gemini and what that can bring forward, you know. But
like,
out of bounds is like a
out of
whole
bounds
new
is like
spin on it.
what is new? Like what is it going to be bringing in that is completely unexpected and totally groundbreaking, rule breaking, mold breaking, out there ideas, and the way that we express them, and the way we, you know, pour ourselves into them, or the way we pour ourselves into each other. Like it's going to be really cool. I don't know. It's going to be a great time for a podcast.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, maybe we need to have you back just to like talk about that, because I'm going to be really curious, because I know, I mean, at least for me, and I know that you're the same way, because you're so tapped in, you start feeling this energy like before it gets here. So yeah, I think it's fascinating too, because I don't think that I've heard anyone talk about the Mars Gemini in relation to 2022 yet. So I'm gonna have to dive into this after this discussion. So I want to respect your time, and I have a couple of questions that I just kind of want to ask you to make sure that we get in here. So first of all, I kind of wanted to ask you, and this might be too big of a question, but I wanted to throw it out there. Are there like, well, I guess let me start with, if you were to tap into maybe an overarching theme for 2022, what would you say?
Feeling safe with the shadow, learning how to feel safe with the shadow, learning how to feel safe inside ourselves, safety,
Yeah.
self-care and safety. I really do believe
I
that. I
think
believe that
emotions are going to be enormous topics this year.
yeah, like do your work. Like it's okay. It's okay. It's the darkness is not a scary place. You can find security within it. That's what's going to be the overarching theme, and a continuation of this square between Uranus and Saturn. So the other overarching theme is a continuation of this theme that we've already been seeing, which is like kind of like this crazy, like no one knows what's going on. Rules, they show up one minute, they're gone the next, right? We're all like kind of like in this mode of trying to figure out how to manage something that is unexpected, that is threatening our survival, and right, Uranus and Taurus, and we're trying to figure out how to put structure and form around it so that we can contain it, Saturn, so that we can all have a collective civilization that works cohesively. But we keep having these like eruptions and rebellions and revolutions, and we keep having people say no, and we keep having changes, right? Like everything changes, like, oh my God, now COVID has changed.
Yeah.
Who knew? Like it's, there's going to be a continuation of that chaos. The chaos isn't going to stop for a while, but now we get to look at what is underneath, what is underneath the surface, okay, of all these, like maybe we're just a little bit tired of COVID by this point. Maybe like we're just a little exhausted.
Yes. I think we all are exhausted.
Right? So like maybe our opinions are going to take a back seat, and we're going to start to feel our feelings, and we're going to start to feel the exhaustion and feel what the impact of this has been on us, and learn how to kind of take care of ourselves and re-anchor into what really matters for us. because those values are how we are going to survive. Like Taurus is about survival. It's about values. What you care about, that is what matters to you. That is how you survive. Like you'll like your deepest values, you'll notice, what do you value in life? Look around you and you're going to see it reflected back to you, because that's how you're creating your security. What you value in life, that's how you create your security. Okay, that's you'll see it reflected around. So what are our deepest values, and how do we live by them, and how do we work through the pain or the fear or the trauma that is keeping us from feeling safe in our bodies?
Yeah, it feels like it's going to be a stripping of, well, I mean, I think that it's going to be, at least intuitively, it feels like the exhaustion is going to be the impetus for the introduction, for the acceptance, for the awareness of the emotional self, that's then going to bring us into those deeper levels of what we need to recognize, that we've been moving way too fast to recognize for forever, right? That
Yeah.
COVID came in to be like, boom, 2020 was like, no more. We are stopping. We are blowing the shit up. Things are redirecting now. And so it's that total awakening is very much what it feels like, which is, yeah,
The embodiment part. Yeah, like
yeah,
embodiment,
huge.
right? And so
So,
yeah, so it's a fixed, there are fixed signs. So it is about values, and it is about stopping, and it is about going slow, and it's not about air and fire anymore. Like it is about going
well, and
down.
that's the thing. I mean, you can't really do emotional work at a fast speed. You can't do that. And I think that
That's
honestly,
that's it.
it's the exhaustion that's going to help us. You know what I mean?
For
Because
sure.
like if we were just going at our normal pace, we wouldn't take the time,
No, of course not. We're
truthfully.
distracted. We're too busy. You guys are also in America going through a Pluto return, and I believe that's starting, but I don't know a lot about it because I'm not American. But I know that Astrology Hub did a really nice panel, a Pluto panel, like a Pluto return panel. And if anyone is interested in understanding what the Pluto return might be, there were some really exceptional astrologers doing a talk. And I bet you can buy it on the Astrology Hub website if anyone wants to go and find that. Some of the top astrologers in America got together, and like 4 of them, and just kind of hashed it out. And
Yeah.
I learned some interesting things there, but that's going to be pretty significant for your country and your government and your civilization as well. So I think things will be even more intense in America, actually.
So, are there any parts of like, our personal charts that we should be paying extra attention to coming
Yeah,
into
for
this
sure.
year?
Absolutely. You should pay attention to where there is Scorpio and Taurus. And if you have any fixed signs in your chart, I mean, you are really having to make some big adjustments, right? In your life right
And
now.
the fixed signs are
Scorpio, so
Leo.
Taurus,
Yeah.
Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So
Yeah.
anything in the fixed signs,
And this is
because
like natal chart, you mean,
natal
right?
chart, yeah, if you
Yeah.
have planets in the fixed signs, if you have planets that are going to be impacted by Saturn and Uranus, right? Saturn is going to be, oh gosh, I wrote all of this down as
I have
well.
so much Scorpio in my chart.
Yeah, well then this is a really, really important year for you.
Because, I've not been doing anything for the past 2 years. Ha.
Well, anyway, I know it's
Not,
challenging for the fixed signs this year. I mean, I think that the mutables will get a bit of a break because of the Jupiter and Neptune. We're gonna have a little bit more fun, the mutables, but the fixed signs, man, you're getting hit, you're getting pummeled. I'm so sorry. I wrote down all of the like the ranges of, but I can't find it now, and my notes are just kind of creating disharmony for me. So
no
just
worries.
yeah, my sincere apologies. In any case, I think that, look in your chart to the places where the fixed signs lie, and think about where the the eclipses are all happening in Taurus, Scorpio. So what house of your chart holds Taurus and Scorpio? and then imagine what the themes are going to be for transformation or change this year for you versus, like, based on the eclipses and based on the nodes. Okay, so I have, like, I don't know, I have Taurus in my 12th house and I have Scorpio in my 6th house.
Ooh.
So my themes will be, well, and also Taurus in my 11th and Scorpio in my 5th. So there's some overlap, and there's a little bit of a, perhaps a personal work, self-deprecation theme, woundedness, 6th house, self, like wounding self, 5th house, Scorpio, to kind of feeling safe in society, feeling safe in the universe, Taurus, 11th, 12th house, right? So that's kind of maybe how you can slightly interpret it. You want to look at the south node where it's transiting, and you want to say, well, this is where shadow is going to come up for me in this part of my life. Like if it's the 10th house, it might come up in your career, or it might come up in terms of your social standing, or the way you take responsibility for yourself in the world. There might be patterns of karma that come up for you in that area of your life. And then the remedy
So
is
the Scorpio house will be the where the shadows are coming up.
and
Okay,
then
and
the
then the
Taurus
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 house is
house
the
will be the
remedy.
remedy area. So it's where you are, like, wanting to stretch into a sense of peace and groundedness and safety, right? So if my 5th house is afflicted with Scorpio, then I'm going to feel like an affront to my personal vitality, my personal self-expression, my personal ego. And the way that I would perhaps remedy that might be to stretch into community more and be seen, and to put myself out there, like to overcome the dark feelings inside myself about myself, and maybe just to kind of go out and try and feel safe and grounded in with people that love me. Or does that make sense? Or make it about others and not about myself. Get out of my own myopia of self, and like try to give back to my community something of value. Taurus in the 11th house, and something grounded and strong and real and tangible. And so these would be ways that I might work with them. I'm just giving you a personal example so you guys can kind of think through how you might equate the words to your own nodal axis. And if anyone is interested in a reading, come and have a reading if that's something that's
Sarah's awesome.
curiosity, but it doesn't matter. You can go do it with yourself. So.
Yes, highly recommend booking a session with Sarah. I think, yeah, it's been 2 years since you read my chart, and I still gain so much value when I go back and listen to that,
Oh,
which I
really?
think the last time that I did was like 2 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
All the
mean,
best
so much
readings ever,
value.
I do the same thing. They, like, the words from them, from like the people I've really had amazing readings from, they reverberate inside my mind to this day. I agree with you. It's really
Yeah.
special. That's how we help each other. That's how we serve each other. That's why we're here. We're here to be of service to each other, right? There's only really one of us here, after all.
Yes.
I think that that's such an important last thing to remember through this next cycle as well, is that, like, there really is only one of us here. Like, you're not alone, and we're all in this together. And though it might feel sometimes scary and dark and overwhelming, like, just like you said back at the beginning, like we want each one of us to be able to show up in our own authenticity and to feel safe presenting into the collective their self, no matter what that self is. If your self is all nasty and broken, that's okay. Like, if your self is all proud and strong and beautiful, that's okay. But just authenticity is such an important theme of this year. I just want to really hammer that. There is no shame in feeling. There is no shame in being broken and crying your eyes out. That is part of a process that is so important. So please don't go too far. Don't make a mistake. Just, like, reach out. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so, so much for coming back on the podcast, Miss Sarah, and sharing your wisdom and
There's Anna.
real life, real life.
All right.
But no, thank you so much. And folks, I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this. I'm curious to hear where you think this is going to be elevating your life, perhaps things where you should be cautious of, or whatever the case may be. So make sure that, I don't know, just to hit me up, let me know. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you next week. Oh, don't forget, when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits.
Yay! Thanks, Anna.